Real estate professionals can't dictate who the consumer uses. There always needs to be a choice given. Somebody can just decide to use whoever they want or someone that their friend used. And I'm going to go over in this episode exactly why I think why the latter of the two options I think is a good thing. Let's start with lending. So lending can be very complicated depending on your file. Welcome back to another episode of Moving Sucks. I am your host, Seth with the SLG team at Real Broker. Today, I am going to be tackling a old chestnut of real estate, and it is whether you should use your own lender and title and vendors, or you should use your realtors. So people kind of cut both ways with this. On my team, we don't. We almost always recommend that you use somebody that we know, somebody that we trust and, have regular communication with. Before I go any further, though, I need to talk about something called RESPA. And that is basically a regulation that says that real estate professionals can't dictate who the consumer uses. There always needs to be a choice given, or at least the disclosure that choice is available. So there are some consumers who will sit there and be like, well, the only way I would be able to work with him is if I use their lender or their title or their contractors or whatever. That's actually not the case, and that's illegal. So if you do have a real estate professional out there who's talking to you about, well, the only person I work with is this guy, and that's just, I've been doing this for a really long time, and that's the only person I use. Like, that actually is not allowed. So, but what we do here at the SLG team is we make a good case as to why that's a good thing. But it really comes down to a personality. Like, somebody can just decide to use whoever they want or someone that their friend used in terms of a lender or a title company. Title is largely boilerplate. The pricing is regulated by the state. Services are generally the same. It's just really a matter of like how organized they are, and obviously, how competent the title searches are. But the lending piece is a big deal because it comes down to style, comes down to interest rate, comes down to costs. Every lender's a little different. It's like a real estate brokerage. Everyone's providing services at slightly different rates. There isn't a regulation really in terms of set pricing like there is for title. And there's some consumers who just want to go rogue. They want to use the lender their friend used, or, I have a client right now. He works at a bank, so he's going to use his bank. But then there's also a very, very large majority of consumers who just really want to be told who to use and what to use. And I'm going to go over in this episode exactly why I think that is why the latter of the two options I think is a good thing. Again, I cannot tell anybody who they need to use or who they should use, or hold it over anyone's head and, say you can't do this unless you do that, anything like that. But most of my clients come into what we call my tent because it's just easier. Right now I probably have anywhere from 5 to 6 transactions going between buyers and sellers. The buy side, uses a lot of resources like a lender, a title, inspector, that type of thing. On the seller side, there's a lot of them using my vendors in terms of like contractors, moving companies, estate companies, and the consumer really finds it just easier to just use the people that the agent uses on a regular basis. It'd be kind of like going into a car shop, and you bringing your own parts. It's like no. It's like they get their stuff from the distributor, and it's just easy because like the mechanic knows those parts. And there's a few reasons in addition that I want to go over why that is a good thing. Now, let's start with lending. So lending can be very complicated depending on your file. It doesn't have to be complicated, but there are moving parts, and there's communication style, there is disclosures, there's processors, there's appraisals, and that all kind of has to work with the real estate transaction because the lending is just one piece. The other pieces, we have inspections. We have title. We have other logistical things. We have walkthroughs. We have contractors potentially needing to go into the property. So the idea here with lending is sometimes you can get into a lending situation if you use like a one of these like big box companies where and I'm literally in a transaction right now where he's a vet and he decided to use a kind of like an online veterans lender, and he's having some problems because he has 5 contacts now at that company. Because what happens is it's a kind of like a group effort over at these companies where they just go in and pick up the file and they just start working on it. So meaning the file kind of goes back into like a mainframe, and then if somebody's available, they just start working on it. So a lot of times at the various stages of the loan process, there are times when a lender's got to go in, or an underwriter or processor needs to go in and move it to the next step. So the problem with that is that you've got multiple people that you're talking to throughout your transaction, and if shit hits the fan, you're really going to have to figure out what you're not going to know necessarily who did what and who to contact and everything like that, which creates a lot of inefficiency, a lot of uncertainty, and a lot of sleepless nights. So what we do is we bring them into one of our preferred lenders, and the person we introduce you to at the end is the person you're going to be sitting with at the settlement table and beyond. So it's really a nice streamlined process. The lender is the like loan originator is like the face, and then there's processors, but these are all the same people throughout the transaction. So our lenders, they assign a file to a staff member or a processor, and then like that's their baby, that's their file. So the reason that that's good for your transaction and your realtor, frankly, is because we're finishing each other's sentences and working on multiple files at the same time, so we can be sure to keep like a close watch on that transaction. So when a client comes to me and they want to use a specific lender, I have to develop a new relationship. I have to get an understanding of what their communication style is. Do they work after hours? Do they work weekends? And I have to do like a little bit of a discovery process. And if those two things like aren't in alignment, especially with this market and how pricing is being sold, which still in the Philadelphia area is over the weekend, that can pose an issue. So I always try to tell people like it's really better if you can use whoever you want, but it's really better if you use the people that are kind of in my tent, because we're communicating all day over multiple files, and it's just easier that way. So the title we've already kind of talked about, which is just like it's boilerplate. It really comes down to style. Again, like I've got the cell phone number of the CEO of my title company. So if like I've never had to escalate it there, but if I ever need to escalate something, I can get right on the horn on a Sunday night and start lighting fires under people's asses. I can't do that if it's some random title company, because I don't know who they are and I don't know what the pecking order is over there. So very rarely do things go wrong, but if their title is very involved up to settlement, and that timeline is very important. So to ensure that we settle on time, sometimes I need to go into that title company and make sure that things are being done, and that if I got to put a boot to an ass, that's what I got to do. Very rarely do we need to do that, because my title company and we work together all the time. They understand expectations. They know what my expectations are for my files, and it just makes a better experience for you. Same thing goes with contractors. If you've got some project, why not use the contractors that my past clients have used and raved about? Why take a chance on somebody that you've never used? Now, if you've used someone in the past, you have your own contractor, that's perfectly fine. But if you're like Googling or Angie's Listing or homewising a contractor and trying to drill down cheaper rates or whatever, that's fine. But I would be really cautious with that, because you just do not know what you're getting. So I have this conversation with my clients all the time about who to use, who can you use, and it's almost always better to just kind of come into that realtor's tent and use the people that they use, as long as you're not getting adverse rates, adverse performance, but it's much less likely for that to happen if they are in your agent's kind of ecosystem, because they're highly incentivized to get these deals done for you. And for someone like me who does a ton of business and I've got multiple deals going at all times, I always tell my title people, I'm like, I do not want to come back to this file. I will be here if you have a problem. But if I have to start calling you and I have to start asking you where things are, for perfect example, I have a settlement tomorrow on a multifamily in Philadelphia proper, and I do not have the settlement sheet. I don't know when the walkthrough is, and we've been asking for a week. And so if they had used my title company, if the buyers had used my title company, I would have been able to be all over it. And that's unfortunately not the case. So you always run that risk when you're selling something, because you don't know the title company usually, and you don't know the lender because they're not yours. So that's a good example of like what can kind of go wrong. If you are interviewing agents, you really should be asking that question. Who's in your tribe? Who do you have at your disposal that can fix problems? Can you give me a past example of how your sphere fixed a problem for your client in short order? I can give a million of them. You want a problem-solving ninja as a realtor, and usually by extension, you want these people to be the same, because you've got the hard part, man. The whole name of this podcast is Moving Sucks. It sucks, man. And like, I never take for granted that we're realtors and lenders and inspectors, and we get to go home and like put our head on the pillow. But like, you're the one that, like, late at night, like packing up your drawers and, trying to decide whether to throw away that old toy and deal with your kids, or, dealing with the emotional distress of clearing out your parents' house, because we work with a ton of estate homes and estate attorneys. So you got the hard part. I would suggest that you take a load off. Let the agent bring you the people that are going to be kind of your ninja force to get you through a transaction. I wouldn't try to overthink this. Of course, you can use whoever you want, but if I were buying or selling a home, I would absolutely use the realtors, kind of tribe of experts. So hope you find that helpful. And there is a rumor that Jen Anuski might be reappearing next week. I'm not sure if it's founded, but there is a chance, I've heard, that there is going to be a comeback episode. And if it's not next week, it will probably be the following week. And she has been listening, and she is not happy with some of my positions. So she wants to come on and talk about why I'm wrong. And that's one of my favorite things in the whole wide world. All right. Thanks, guys. See you.